Hey, what's up everybody, I'm John aka Saikama, and you're just in time for a presentation if you have a couple of minutes to spare, because I'm going to show you and talk a bit about something cool me and my crew have been working on lately. And if you're a strategy gamer or generally just like board games, you should really check this out. And you are currently doing so. I mean, you are looking at the end result of the project right now, even if you're just scratching the surface of it. And even if you don't know what the hell you are looking at. Well, to put it shortly, it's a big old board game about galactic conquest. That is to say, a board game on the computer. You'd be like, so it's like a computer game, except not? That makes no sense. Well, actually, yeah, it does make sense, and hopefully the rest of the video will show you why, and have you convinced. Anywho, I guess at least some of you out there can perhaps vaguely recognize what you see as something that resembles Twilight Imperium 3rd edition, published by Fantasy Flight Games back in 2005. But this thing right here though is not exactly that game, but rather an implementation of a long-developed community redesign of that game called Shattered Ascension, which you can find information all about on astrovault.net/games/sa. To recap ever so briefly though, it's basically a massive overhaul of the game which improves upon most aspects of it, from balance to dynamics, concept mechanics, interface, strategic depth, rule streamlining and clarifications and so on. I'll get more into the design decisions about these changes in a later video, but for now let's stick to the topic at hand, which is about this mod and what the hell it's all about. Cause yes, it's a mod, or module, to the software called Tabletop Simulator, which lets you play a bunch of different board games on your computer. At its core, it's more or less a physics sandbox where you can move stuff around and interact with game pieces as if playing a normal board game, with no scripted rules, etc. And the point of this? Well, you can play those damn board games right from your chair now, which means no cleaning tables and getting people over. Just call your friends and have them log on to the game and use some voice comm service like Skype or Discord or whatever, and get right into the action. But the best part, you no longer have to sit for 6 fucking hours in one sitting to play an epic game like this. You simply save the game state and continue another day, with no clutter on your living room table in the meantime. So let's go ahead and dive a bit into the nuts and bolts of this thing, and but first, let me just get this little disclaimer thing out there, just for good measure. Hang on.
Shattered Ascension is effectively a different game, and is no substitution for Twilight Imperium 3rd edition. In fact, I warmly recommend purchasing that game from fantasyflightgames.com, despite its alleged flaws. Shattered Ascension features different and extended card decks, new models, new rules, new artwork, new components, and in general a different gaming experience. However, some artwork from the original game are still in use, although slightly retouched to a varying degree. The game's setting still takes place in Twilight Imperium universe, however, and is therefore a Fantasy Flight Games intellectual property, which is why these components are not for sale despite popular demand.
Right, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's look a bit more closely at how stuff really works. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a physics sandbox, which means that the game engine solves physical equations like gravity, collisions, and all sorts of complicated stuff just to enable you to goof around with the pieces all naturally and intuitively, throw them around or stack things on top of each other while waiting for your turn, and so on, like everything you'd be doing in real life. And as always, when you're about to lose, you can flip the goddamn table. I'm just kidding, don't do that. Don't be a punk. Of course, Tabletop Simulator is not just a sandbox. It has pretty much every functionality required to play any board game. For instance, you can draw cards and keep them in your hand area where only you can see them. You can shuffle decks simply by shaking them with your mouse and deal cards by the click of a button. You can flip stuff around, and when rolling dice you can either simply roll it and let the physics play out, or you can just click a button. To easily read text on cards and stuff, you can just hold the Alt key while hovering over the item to have it pop up on your screen right away. This way, several players can also read the same card simultaneously, which may also save time. It's all pretty immersive once you get used to the controls actually. Oh, and if you miss an even more immersive experience, you can run this thing on virtual reality. So just plug in Oculus or Vive or any other VR solution you might think of and enjoy the full 3D experience. So aside from the actual software here, the reason this particular mod looks so sweet is rather attributed to the 1,000 hours we've spent with Photoshop and Blender and scripting. Because all these fully original high quality tile textures, 3D models and stuff takes time to make. A lot of time. So yeah, it's worth taking a closer look to appreciate the details in the fabric, even on this tiny fighter unit. And the hexagonal game tiles you currently see on the table isn't even half of them. Note that unlike the original game, all of the 80 plus planet textures here are completely unique and based on the descriptive text on the respective planet cards. So this is a war game about galactic conquest, as is obvious enough from the graphic design. Each of the players control one of many interstellar great races, or species if you will, that vie for control of the galaxy. Each of these races comes with different and unique concepts, strengths and weaknesses, special abilities, and even objectives to accomplish. You need to develop strategies to maximize your military potential, plan ahead, and diplomatize and negotiate with other players in order to get ahead in the game. This right here is a 5-player setup, but it can be played with anything from 2 players to 8 players on smaller or even larger galaxies than this one. It can get pretty massive. And while this game is infamous for its extensive setup time, I'm gonna show you what we've done to all but eliminate that shit. For instance, let me load the mod as it looks when starting a new game. You go in here and you will see all your subscribed items from the Steam Workshop, and there we go, Shattered Ascension 4.2 beta. So just hang on for a second while the textures are loading. And here we are, clean table. This is by the way the alternative vertical board setup we are likely to proceed with in the future. So what about that setup time? Well, for starters, all the maps in the Shattered Ascension chart database is fully pre-scripted. So let's go ahead and select one. Just press the big ass deploy button on the minimap there and voila, it will automatically appear perfectly laid out on your table. And furthermore, you can click this button appearing on the location of your homeworld and simply choose the race you're playing. Just like this. Let's for example choose the Federation of Sol, and you'll immediately see the correct tile with the correct starting units belonging to that species popping right up. And on each player area there's another deploy button. Just repeat the procedure here and it will load up and carefully pre-place everything you need to start your conquest right away. Dum. Thanks, we just saved 15 minutes right there. This is just awesome. But while this is obviously totally great and all, you might ask, what about the social aspect of board games? Doesn't that matter? Well, in my experience, playing a digital board game like this with open communication is already much more social than playing traditional computer games at least, even if it doesn't fully replace the idea of sitting around an actual physical table. And I admit I personally wouldn't be interested in playing every board game this way, but for some reason this particular game seems to resonate well within this medium. Perhaps it's something with the theme and the setting of the game, like the vastness of space and the remoteness of alien civilizations which your opponents represent, and therefore it actually supports the thematic feeling of the game. I don't know, it just works beautifully. And regardless of any of that, at least you get to actually play the game, instead of seeing it collect dust on your shelf. So, I think we managed to cover most of the basics and main concepts so far. That is, without any attempt to dive into the depths of actual gameplay, but that's outside the scope of this video. In the next video, however, I plan to go through instructions about how to set up and actually play it. In other words, to fully explain the contents of the rulebook so that you don't have to read it. You lazy bastard. I'm just kidding, I hate reading rules myself, so I hope it'll be of help to someone. If you were intrigued by what you saw and will want to check this out, I warmly recommend the dedicated group on Steam, which is an active and friendly community hosting regular game nights and so on. At the time of making this video, we are 200 members in the Steam group and over 1200 subscribers on Steam altogether. And that's not enough. So thanks for listening, and hopefully we can catch a game together in the future. By the way, if you like the mod, it means the world to us if you just click like on Steam. Rate it up, man. Thank you so much. See you there, and take care.